Hello all and welcome to tonight's beer review, which I am dubbing the Extreme Overtime Beer Review. One of the guys at my work has left the site to be transferred to a site closer to home, so me and the other girl have to go and cover his hours, which means I'm going to be working 54 hours a week, 6 days a week. Hooray for working security. And basically, even with all that overtime, I'm still getting paid less than I did at my office job. So, FML. But that's why there's beer. So, I'm going to be reviewing a special beer today because you know how I like to review local beers. And hopefully it won't go and blow its top because I accidentally knocked this over while I was letting it warm up a bit. And why was I letting it warm up a bit? Because this is White Mountain Porter, which is basically from Big Island Brewhaus, which is, in my opinion, the most underrated, craft brewery in Hawaii. It's the one nobody knows about, and that's because they pretty much keep to themselves. They put out these bombers for the local market, but that's about it. I don't think they export outside the state. And they pretty much just run their Mexican restaurant / brewery up in the small town of Waimea in the foothills of Mauna Kea. Hence the name White Mountain Porter, because Mauna Kea's got a white snow cap on it. So this is brewed with toasted coconut and coffee. Because of the toasted coconut, I let this one get really warm. I find that coconut tends to hide itself in the slightest bit of cold. So let's read this, shall we? This hefty 22-ounce bottle is meant to be shared, but of course you may not want to. Behold a special handcrafted beer, brewed and bottled only in Hawaii. This award-winning robust porter is brewed with Maris Otter, Crystal, Munich, chocolate, and black malts. A blend of American hops, toasted coconut, and White Mountain coffee from Big Island's Hamakua coast. Black in color, crowned with a creamy dark tan head. Its coconut and coffee aromas are followed by hints of rich, silky, dark malt with nuances of chocolate. Hops add spice to balance the finish. A great match with Indian, Thai, or Mexican dishes, and perhaps best with a scoop of vanilla ice cream. Keep refrigerated for freshness. So, yeah. Hawaii's highest brewery, 2,764 feet above sea level. 5.8 ABV, so pretty much average porter strength. A little bit on the expensive side. Now, let's hope that this doesn't go nuts, because like I said, I accidentally knocked this over. Doesn't look like it. Looks like there was some air escaping. Ooh, nice. I'm going to give this one a gentle pour since it's warm and it got knocked over. Just a little bit more head here. Okay, perfect. So, coloration is very dark for a porter. Looks to be just the slightest bit of yellow-brown coming through the bottom here, but otherwise completely opaque. Nice tan head. Very rich and nutty. Got chocolatey, got nutness. Not really too much coconut in the head, but coconut I find doesn't really express itself so well in the nose. Interesting vegetal notes that don't really seem hop, more like aside from the nut. Some roasted coffee underneath that. And overall a nice creaminess, almost like a latte. Nice silky mouthfeel from start to finish. Coats the tongue after. A lot of flavors there, but not really booming. So it's more like a porter. It's still very drinkable. get this nice, lasting, roasted finish with hints of coffee bean and slight amounts of bittering hops on the herbal side there. But again, mostly roasted malt, real malt show start to finish. Coconut really shows up in the mouthfeel and in the mid to finish, where there's this sort of creamy nuttiness that expresses itself there. It's very rich feeling without being too rich tasting. Nicely sensuous on the tongue. I would say almost oily, but I don't like the connotation of oily. Sometimes when I use oily, I mean it in a bad way, like I'm drinking motor oil. This feels more like nice coconut oil. You know, somebody putting like some Hawaiian Tropic suntan lotion on my tongue. In the mid, there's this big boom of almost coffee and cola notes. It sort of subsides to the roasted aftertaste in the finish. In the front, you got lots of hints of semi-sweet chocolate. Probably the most you're going to get of that sort of coconut, kind of a grated coconut taste. Again, coconut is such a subtle flavor. Actual coconut is such a subtle flavor that you have to really, it shows itself in secondary ways rather than in forward ways. It would be the sort of nuttiness. It would be toasted aspects. It'll be feeling aspects in the mouthfeel. Head kind of dissipated quickly. Maybe it was a little bit too warm. I would like to say, or maybe I said muted earlier, this is not really muted, it's more subtle. Everything is there, everything can be sussed out, it's just not slapping you in the face. It's basically acting as a porter should be, which is drinkable. This is not an imperial porter, it's not a Baltic porter, it's pretty much an actual porter. So, despite being very well crafted, it's going to be, not as heavy, not in your face. Even after that roasted aspect is finished, it just leaves this wonderful coconut oil sort of like taste and feel on your tongue. And the best way I can sort of describe it is when you kind of cut down a young green coconut, not one that's sort of fully ripe and the flesh is hardened, but one where the flesh is still soft and almost like, I'd say almost like a pudding-like consistency, a hard pudding-like consistency, or maybe a hard gelatin-like consistency. And you eat it and it just leaves this very lasting feeling in your mouth. That's what it's sort of like. And if you've never had, fresh coconut, you don't know what you're missing out on, friends. It's a true treat. So, this is a excellent beer, as pretty much all beers from this brewery are. My only one complaint is kind of on the pricey side, but, for a small release, small craft brewery. Can't complain too much. That's how it's always going to be. It's $10 for this bottle, but hey, it's Hawaii. Every bomber by every, major brewer here is $9 to $10. And what you're getting for that $9 to $10? Well, you're probably not going to catch a huge buzz off of it, but you are going to get this wonderful, subtle, delicious, and just awesome feeling. Got a lomi massage on the tongue there. Just this awesome feeling in the mouth. So if you're in Hawaii, give it a shot. Pretty much give any of the Big Island Brewhouse's beers a shot. I don't think you can go wrong with any of them. Their IPA, it's not mind-blowing like the other beers I've had from them, but it's still very drinkable. And the other beers I've had, all been like this. Really, really good. Excuse me. Really, really good. And again, not very well known outside the state. So I guess I'm, evangelizing this brewery a lot, but I'd like for it to get known better because they do really good beer. Well, that's your beer review for tonight, folks. Cheers.